Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, and welcome to Command Power, the show in which we discuss all things Magic the Gathering with a focus on Commander. And today we have a brand new deck for you, but before that, just a quick reminder to please click like and subscribe if you enjoyed my videos. We're well on our way to 1 million subscribers and every single click counts. And today's deck is going to be centered around Etrata, Deadly Fugitive. For 1 colorless, 1 blue and 1 black, she's a legendary creature vampire assassin, 1/4 with Death Touch. Face down creatures you control have 2 colors, blue, black. Turn this creature face up. If you can't exile it, then you may cast the exile card without paying its mana cost. And whenever an assassin you control deals combat damage to an opponent, cloak the top card of that player's library. So this card with the massive amount of text is actually fairly simple in what it does. It's going to cloak stuff from our opponent's library, and we do need to be playing a bit of Assassin Tribal to do that. Cloaking, of course, means we're going to put the card face down as a 2/2 with Ward, and then we can use the ability on Etrata, of course, to basically get the creature on its front side. And if we can't do that because it's not a creature, then we get to basically play it for free. Do bear in mind that this doesn't work if it's a land because it says cast. However, it's still a very interesting effect to be able to have. It means that you can just get a steady source of basically free creatures, and as soon as you have 4 mana up, you can really start getting some serious advantage by playing big spells or flipping over creatures for that cost. It also means she works really well with cards that already have Morph or Disguise because you can just turn them up for 4 mana, which is often a discount. So with all of that in mind, this is a very powerful effect, and without further ado, let's jump into the deck tech. So we're starting off with Agent of Treachery. This is really powerful because of course it's going to steal something, which is already fairly good by itself, but then the fact that you're going to get to draw a bunch of cards with this is even better in this deck. We also have a couple of blink effects as well, which means that we can get the ETB over and over. A Fetter Runecaster should be drawing us quite a few cards, seeing as we're going to be turning a lot of creatures face up. Avan Hardstabber is a really good card in the deck. It does a good impression of Baleful Strix late game, and it's also an assassin, which is something we need a lot of in the deck. Big Game Hunter is a really good assassin. We're almost never going to be casting it for its madness cost, but it's still really nice to just have it come in and snipe something big. Colorless Assassin is a really good card. We're going to play it and deal with a really big problem while then getting a copy of our own, which is great. Changeling Outcast is one of the best cards in the deck because it comes down on turn 1, it's an assassin and it can't be blocked. The original Etrata is very good in this deck as well because it's an assassin that can't be blocked, and we do have a couple of ways to put hit counts on cards in exile, so this can actually win us the game sometimes. Grezalax isn't an assassin, but it always puts your opponents in a pretty tough spot because you're going to either be drawing some cards or rebuying some powerful creatures and getting their ETBs again. Grim Hireling is really good in this deck because we have a lot of creatures that have an easy time pushing through damage, which means we're going to get a lot of treasures. It's not uncommon on turn 4 for this to just pay for itself the turn you play it. Killsworn Power is a really good assassin both on offense and on defense. Hide Poisoner is really annoying because they're either going to have to trade a creature with it or give you a trigger for your Etrata. Ixidor Reality Sculptor gives us another card that can turn creatures face up. Ixidron is very powerful in this deck since we have many ways to turn our creatures back face up, which means that we can make this very one-sided, which is obviously great. Karu's Spell Snatcher is particularly good in this deck because normally the morph cost of 6 is kind of prohibitive, but getting it for 4 is just so much better. Kiku Knight's Flower is a nice assassin that can either swing in for damage if the coast is clear or just stop picking off our opponent's best creatures. Mario the Killing Quill is very good. It gives a nice bit of graveyard hate, which is always nice, and then giving Death Touch to all of our assassins is very annoying. The original Massacre Girl is very strong as an assassin that essentially is going to allow us to wipe the board. Midnight Assassin is pretty vanilla, but pretty vanilla is quite good in this deck. An assassin with evasion is really powerful. Mothdust Changeling is again basically an assassin with evasion. Necrotal is another good assassin that comes with a kill spell attached. Notion Thief is a really powerful card when somebody taps out to play a really big card draw spell. Ramses Assassin Lord is going to buff all of our assassins, which is obviously great. And we can just randomly win the game with this occasionally, which is obviously fantastic. Ravenloft Adventurer is yet more graveyard hate with hit counters. Roaming Throne is obviously fantastic in any tribal deck, and this being an assassin deck, it's great here. Pearl Assassin is some nice removal that also happens to fit the deck's theme. Ruthless Ripper is great in this deck because it's both an assassin and a morph card, so it's going to trigger a lot of our effects. Scarblade Elite is actually a really strong source of repeatable removal in this deck. Stilmgar Assassin is really interesting because it can either be a really hard to block assassin if you just pay it for 2 mana, or if you pay the Megamorph, it can be a slightly easier to block assassin, but it can come with a kill spell attached. Straightest Dancer is a great way to counter a spell that also synergizes with our deck's theme. Tetsuko Umezawa Fugitive allows a lot of our creatures to slip by unnoticed. Thassa Deep Dwelling works really well with all of our face down creatures. The Cyber Controller synergizes very well with what the deck is trying to do by essentially stealing a bunch of creature cards that we can then turn over. Giving Amalgam also works very well with the deck's theme, and it's also kind of going to put a pretty big block on our opponents. Thorn of the Black Rose gives us the Monarchy, which is always nice to have, particularly since we have so many ways to deal damage in this deck. Universal Automaton is another 1-mana assassin to get the ball rolling early. Virtus the Veiled is a very annoying assassin that forces them to either trade a creature or lose half their life. And Willbender is really annoying and can come out of nowhere to totally steal games. Moving on to sorceries, we have Ghastly Conscription, which can be a great finisher in this deck. It's going to give us a lot of creatures. Right into Being gives us a little bit of card selection, whilst also allowing us to manifest a card. For instance, we have Ghostly Flicker, which is very powerful with all of the face down creatures we're going to be using. Moving on to artifacts, we have Conjurer's Closet, which just like Thassa Deep Dwelling works very well to cheat all the mana costs for our face down stuff. Maskwood Nexus makes sure that those few creatures in the deck that aren't assassins also happen to be assassins, whilst giving us extra assassins. Scroll of Fate can be great because we just cheat out a card from our hand and essentially play it for much cheaper than it should be with our commander's ability to flip it for 4 mana. And moving on to enchantments, we have Gift of Doom. This one is really powerful because it can just come out of nowhere to surprise an opponent with a Death Touch indestructible creature. Kindred Discovery is obviously going to be great because it's going to draw so many cards with all the assassins we're running. Primordial Mist is an excellent card in this deck because not only is it manifesting, which is something we want to be doing, it also gives us yet another way to flip over those face down creatures if for whatever reason our commander gets removed, and it also allows us to get the ETBs from those creatures, which is always good. Reflections of Lit Jara is going to give us extra copies of all of our assassins, which we're totally there for, and Training Grounds is going to make sure that Etrata's ability and some other abilities in the deck are a lot cheaper to activate. Moving on to lands, we have Access Tunnel, which is good because a lot of our assassins have a low power. Bojuka Bog can deal with one opponent's graveyard, which is always useful. Branch of Vitu-Ghazi is just another disguise card, which works with our theme. Minas Morgul Dark Fortress is a really good card in this deck by basically making one of our creatures close to unblockable. Mutavault counts as an assassin, so it's a great way to add to our board without taking up a creature slot. Rogue's Passage is yet another way to make one of our creatures unblockable, which is always nice. Shizo Death Storehouse is yet another way to make creatures unblockable, although only for legendaries. And the Black Gate is really strong as long as you don't have the most life by making one of your creatures unblockable for only 2 mana. So there you have it. That has been my Etrata Deadly Fugitive deck tech. What do you think about this one? I actually think it looks pretty strong, and I always like decks like this that feed off your opponent's stuff because it means that every game is going to be different and you're going to have a new experience every time. But what do you think? Are there any cards I missed? Are there any things that you wouldn't have added? Let me know in the comment section below. I read all comments and respond to all of them too. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click like or subscribe. It really helps the channel. And until next time, take care.